Welcome to another episode of the Lions Danivore Podcast. Dan right here. And finally, I have this man for an interview. Been a longtime follower, Dustin from KetoSimple. Welcome aboard, my friend.
Thanks for having me, Dan. I appreciate it a lot.
Well, I'm a longtime follower, and I'm like, wow, man, this guy really spits truth, man. I need to have him on. And whenever you're on other shows, I'm honed in. And my ears get all perked up and I'm listening to every detail. But I do have a question. How did you find this lifestyle, man?
Well, the lifestyle kind of found me in a way. So I was in the process of two pieces. So I was going in to start looking to have surgery for a umbilical hernia. Mm-hmm. So it had been like 8 years. I just let it go. And before, like I said before we started the stream, like my wife is a nurse. Mm-hmm. So she would nag me about it, getting it taken care of. And we were worried about it being encapsulated. We were worrying about all these things that can go wrong with having an umbilical hernia, because it was like sticking out of my belly button like this.
Wow.
And you could see it through my t-shirt. And so I was going to the doctor, started to get that stuff taken care of. And I was starting the process to get a CPAP machine, because I had done a in-home sleep study. I did it. They send you home with like the little thing. You put it on, you sleep with it at night. You put it back in a little package. You turn it in the morning. And then I forgot about it. And they were and I was like, man, no one cares. It's not a big deal. And they were like trying to reach out to me like, we need to talk to you. You're really bad. Like it's scary how bad your sleep apnea is. So okay, so when I started getting in the process to get the sleep apnea, the CPAP machine, getting that taken care of, getting my surgery all planned out, and in the process of all that, I had stepped on a scale for the first time in I don't know how long, and it was 421 pounds. And one of the things that I talk about is if you're a person who, and like I'm 6'1", whatever. You hit 400 pounds, it. It's a kind of steady progression. You're buying bigger clothes every year. Every time you go to buy new clothes, it's bigger. You're going from 2X to 3X to 4X. I started buying 5X shirts, and I was one of the guys that wore the pants under the gut, right? So I was wearing 50-inch pants under my gut. If I would have put it up over, like where your waist actually is, I would have probably been in the 60, 65-inch range probably, because it was big. And you just kind of let it go. You just ignore it until, you put up with it. There's a lot of things, there's just so many things that happen and just the light, they say losing weight's hard. Being that big is hard too. So long story short, with all that, I started doing that step on a scale. I go outside from that doctor's office visit, and I call my wife, and I'm like, listen, I'm over 400 pounds. I'm almost 430 pounds. What can we do? And we had, a brief conversation at that point on my way to work. We knew that we didn't want to do weight loss surgery, and not because I don't think it's a viable tool to certain people. So I don't want to diminish anybody who's had that surgery and it's worked for them and it's made their life better. But also, I want to make sure that we understand that it shouldn't be like your first step. It shouldn't be your first option. So that was something that we talked about. Again, my wife being a nurse at the time, she was working on a pancreatic unit where they would see not just the pancreatic people, like the people with pancreatic cancer, where they come in and do all these weird invasive surgeries. Then should also see the weight loss surgery, people needing to get things redone, fixed up, the complications years after the surgery. So they have to go in and fix things. Things are not working the way they're supposed to. And she's like, there's just so many complications. Let's not go that route if we can help it. Let's try this low carb thing. Keto wasn't in our vernacular. We didn't barely knew what low carb was. And I've talked about this, the idea that we didn't really know what to expect when we started to cut out carbohydrates. We didn't know what low carbohydrates actually meant. We were going to the grocery store looking at every single label. We probably did at least 2 multi-hour trips to the grocery store looking at everything because we were just so uneducated. Because prior to this, we would go to the grocery store and be like, okay, well, which breakfast cereal has the lowest sodium for the kids?
Right.
We're looking at, these cups of fruit is in its own juice, so it's got to be better. Just so many misconceptions, so many myths and things that we were dealing with. When we finally started in, we're like, okay, well, what's low carb? Quinoa's got to be healthy. What's quinoa? What has it got carbohydrate wise? And we were just looking at all of this, and it finally started to kind of open up. And I started digging into trying to find low carb recipes, and I was trying to find all these things. And the resources at the time, this is 2016, was not as robust and or overwhelming as it can be now.
Right.
I kind of feel like we're not better off now than we were then, for the fact that now you go and you search something, you're going to see 25 different ways to do something right off the bat. So going in, looking at it, I'm like, I just started really getting into podcasts, listening to podcasts on my commute to work. So I was like, well, let's see what kind of keto stuff's out there. And I found 2 keto dudes. They had really just been going for a few months. And started listening to them. I got caught up on all of them really quick. And I mean, that's how I found out about so many amazing people. They had, in like 2019, 2018, they had like Dr. Barry on and all these things, or maybe even a little earlier than that. That's how I found out about Dr. Barry and all these people. But yeah, that's kind of like a long story short, how we got into it. And then one thing, my general practitioner who was helping me out, getting me in the right direction, helping me get my surgery scheduled and all these things. And it was his office that I was going through to get my CPAP machine. Mentioned in passing, he was like, talking about my weight. We were talking about losing weight, and we were like started to do like, instead of mashed potatoes, we were having mashed cauliflower and, the simple substitutions that were commonplace at the time. And he's just in passing says, well, if you want to lose weight, you really need to be in ketosis.
Wow. Holy smokes. Your doctor said this?
Yeah, he was about ready to retire. He was an old cat, but he didn't elaborate on what that was. So hearing the word ketosis, I've been looking at recipes, and I kept coming back to this website for epileptic children. Was all these ketogenic ketogenic recipes rather. And so I was like, okay. And then I was like, well, ketosis, the 2 keto dudes. Then I was like, okay. And then, so I got really into that. I got really deep into it. And then, I got all the way through, caught up to where the 2 keto dudes were with their podcast. And I decided, Shannon and I started having this conversation because, again, we were in the process of trying to figure out low carb. We were eating like 150 grams of carbohydrates a day as low carb. But I mean, and I know we're going to touch on the food addiction aspect here in this live today. And there's going to be some other things that we're going to talk about. We can focus on that a little bit later. I imagine at the time when we first started, 150 grams was probably a very good step in the right direction from where we had come from. So
I'm still stuck on the doctor just even proposing this. This is unheard of. And again, from 2016, 2017, 2018 to now, doctors don't even present that at all. When I was going through my struggles of being, from this point, probably 70 pounds overweight, they wanted to put me on Xanax. And I said, hold on, I don't have a psychological issue. My depression. They're like, no, because you suffer from OCD. I'm like, I suffer from OCD. There are certain things I didn't even know that I had. They're like, off label, it's going to help your hunger and it's going to curb it. So then I had a discussion with my wife, and my wife is like, absolutely not. Like, I would tell you if you have some sort of issue going on up there, but yours is that you can't stop eating. Like you just can't. You binge eat and you don't know when enough is enough. So now fast forward, when I finally, found this way of of a lifestyle. I go back to that same doctor and he says, this is not good for you. This is not sustainable. Your cholesterol levels are going to go through the roof. So I said, that's what I get in trouble very fast, Dustin, because I don't hold back. So I said, you had rather me as a patient go through a chemical substance that what the side effects are, rather than me eating OMAD or 2MAD, whatever the case is. And you've seen my record for over 25 years. You've seen me struggling with this. Yet instead of pushing me and saying, you know what, I think we're onto something. I may not agree with it, but we're onto something. But this is the establishment that we're going against. That's why, to me, hearing this, that your physician who was about to, now you brought up a really good caveat there. Like, he was about to retire. Could it be that he's like, you know what? It is what it is. If they find out about it, I'm riding into the sunset. Or do you think that he had that kind of old school personality of saying, you know what? I would even say this at the beginning of my career?
I don't know. I think he just said it in passing. Like I said, he didn't elaborate at all. Like, I didn't get anything out of him. He just said, if you want to lose weight, you have to be in ketosis. Now, I didn't understand the gravity of what he said at the time. I didn't know how rare that was. I didn't know that most doctors associate just the word keto or ketosis with ketoacidosis. And so that major difference there, that's why a lot of them are afraid of the word ketosis, because they can't mentally differentiate the difference between the two. And they couldn't be further, like, they're the other complete ends of the spectrum. It's like the difference between like vegan and like Lion diet, right? So I don't think, he probably mentioned that to a few hundred patients, 1,000 patients over his tenure, because he was also my grandmother's doctor too. That's how I started going to see him, because I was taking her to visit him. And like, well, why am I not going here too? It's in my network. I don't have to go somewhere different. It's not far. And so I started seeing him. And then I had lost a bunch of weight, and I was taking her back to see, an appointment to see him. And I was like, oh, remember you mentioned ketosis? I've lost all this weight. And he just kind of looked at me, and then just kind of like, it's been so long now, but he just kind of looked at me and was just kind of like, oh, like he had no idea who I was, what I was talking about, that he had mentioned it in the first place. So
wow.
I don't know. So like I said, he was an older guy. And, but I'm thankful that he mentioned that. And I'm thankful that my brain works the way that it does, because I went down a rabbit hole that was deep, because I was watching lectures. I wasn't, because there weren't live streams like there are now. There were YouTube channels, but not like there are now.
Right.
I was watching like Low Carb USA, Low Carb Down Under. I was watching anything I could get my hands on. I was watching, Low Carb USA talks, someone like like Jeff Volek, how dry he can be, Stephen Finney.
Mm-hmm.
I was, and then I got to know who Professor Noakes is, and just all these people who were at the forefront, especially at the time, of driving this way of life forward and kind of shaping what it turned out to be, what it is kind of turning into now. So I'm very thankful. I'm really, really thankful that I was able to not only hear what he had to say, but run with it.
I think, yes, you're right. I think the most important part was that inception period where he just planted that seed of ketosis, of keto, just that word, that phrase. And as you said, the rabbit hole. I think the term rabbit hole has been demonized as, don't go there, because when you come out of it, you're going to be a completely different person. You're going to be like this crazy viewed. It's not. I think we all have to venture into something that provides some sort of curiosity. That's how we're here. There's no way that we would have gone full carnivore, say 15, 20 years ago. Because I remember the first time I heard about carnivore, my brother was telling me, I'm like, dude, number one, you're overweight and you're doing this, you're going to kill yourself. I don't understand this. And again, my brother, very patient. He's like, it doesn't work that way. So that is, I think, the beauty of this entire community is that we've done our due diligence. We don't go into something blindly and start preaching to everyone, hey, do keto, do carnivore, do lion diet. We've came out of the rabbit hole as a new creature, as a new individual, new mindset, and have a new profound thought process of what real nutrition is. Like, we know at this stage of the game what harms us. And if we allow those foods to get back in, each and every one of us knows how to get back on track. Like for me, unfortunately, I can't deviate, right? Like I'm an all for nothing body type of guy, right? Like I would love to have a slice of pizza. I would love to have a cannoli. Like I would love to have some vegetables. But I know with the chemistry within me that I have tried in the past with keto, like when I was on full keto, I had some blueberries. And before you know it, the blueberries turned into cereal. I'm like, what? Cereal turned into Chips Ahoy. And then that turned into Doritos. And I'm like, hold on a second. It's fruit. It's supposed to be, but because of the glycemic index, it spiked up my insulin levels. My microbiome started kicking in. And it's like, we're back. And I fell back into it. That's why I was yo-yo dieting with keto. But one big difference with keto and carnivore was the control aspect. Like I feel more in control now than I have ever been, in the brain fog. That's what I want to get into, the brain fog. So you were at 421 pounds. You started going on ketosis and then carnivore. Where was that switch within your mental aspect of, holy smokes, we're going into uncharted territory, but I like this. My mind is opening up and I see things a little bit differently and I'm hooked.
So I had an office job and there were days where I felt like I was trying to like run through a swamp. You know what I mean? Like just that thick. You're just trying to just trudge through it. Like mentally, I couldn't get through. And I would, struggle, and I would have difficult, days where sitting at my computer, taking everything in me not to fall asleep at my desk, noon, 2:00, whatever. And I had done all kinds of things trying to lose weight. There was just a brief backstory. There was a point in time in about 2010 where I decided I was going to go to the gym, and I went to the gym Monday through Friday. Mm-hmm. I got there about 5:30, 6:00 in the morning, and I was there. I had to be at work at 9. So I was there. I was lifting weights, doing cardio. I was getting in the pool. I was in the pool, not so much for swimming, but more for stretching and trying to get movement in my body. Mm-hmm. And so then I was sitting in the sauna, and then I would shower. Then I would go to work. I was there for like 2.5, some days, like, 2.5 hours at the gym every day, Monday through Friday. And then on Tuesdays and Thursdays, I would go again after work. And this was about a solid 6-month period. And I remember I lost about 30 pounds. And I was devastated that I only lost 30 pounds. Mm-hmm. There was no mindfulness of the body composition, that I was getting stronger, that all these other things were happening. I wasn't necessarily eating better. I didn't know. I mean, I was 6 years pre-keto, pre-carnivore, pre-keto, whatever you want to call it. I would leave there, and I was still a smoker for a little while at this point too. So I quit smoking in 2010. But I remember getting out of there, lighting up a cigarette, going across the street to Subway, getting a breakfast wrap, And then getting my lunch was like, I'm going to do it healthy. I'm going to get lettuce and the baked chicken breast and I'm going to have the vinaigrette on there. And then I would find myself eating the breakfast on the way to work. And then I would sit there for about an hour, big 9:30, 10 o'clock. And I would eat my lunch sandwich. I was like, I'm just voracious. I was so hungry. But anyway, just to kind of give you that kind of a back context of, like I had been doing so much trying to lose weight over so many years that when I finally, then the kind of coming into where we were with the brain fog and just the constant sluggishness, the inability to really stay awake. There were days that I'm surprised I didn't get caught by management falling asleep at my desk, whatever the case is. And then I remember it had probably been a few months living, keto and all that, because carnivore wasn't a thing at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Carnivore wasn't a thing, and I'm sitting at my desk. It's about 2:00 in the afternoon, and I'm wide awake. Not only am I wide awake, but I felt good. And I felt like it was the difference between like being a kid and having the old fuzzy TV channel you're trying to watch. And then all of a sudden, you pop the side of the TV and it goes to like full HD, like 4K, fully immersive. You're like, wait, what's happening? Like I felt free. I felt light. I felt like I was living in HD, and I never wanted to give that up again. And there were little telltale signs too, like my knees didn't hurt. I didn't even and like things that stopped hurting that I didn't even realize were hurting. There was so much pain in my life that I didn't even realize was there. Even though I'm surprised I'm okay, because I was taking so much Benadryl every day. I was taking, you're supposed to take like one Benadryl at a time, like two times a day. I was taking 4 at a time, like 4 or 5 times a day, and doing the same thing with ibuprofen because my knees would bother me. And I was like, well, just pain. I'm just like, and then that just went away. I didn't need allergy medicine anymore. I didn't need the ibuprofen anymore. I still don't take ibuprofen unless it's like a migraine or maybe, which is very, very rare or whatever, or something happens where like I've got toothache, whatever, right? Just has to be something that I need it for. It was a daily thing. Like we were going through these over-the-counter medicines with the Benadryl, the what is it called now? I can't even think of what it's called. The Prilosec OTC, like the Walmart version.
Oh, for the GI.
Yeah. I had ridiculously bad heartburn. There were, just wake up in the middle of the night with bad heartburn, and kind of find out a lot of that too. A lot of that is sleep apnea. Sleep apnea really impacts that a lot too. So it was compounding the fact that I had terrible eating habits. I was also not sleeping at all at night. So yeah. So, I mean, that wake up was so huge. It was just one of those, it was just like I said something on Two Crazy Ketos live the other day. I was in the chat and I was like, that scene in The Wizard of Oz where she's just gone through hell with that tornado in the house and everything's gone crazy. And then it just calms and it's quiet. And then she opens that door and steps into like the most bright technicolor that she'd ever, she's coming out of the chaos and the black and whiteness of her life into that colorful, bright, just overwhelmingly crystal clear vision of, of Oz, right? And I feel like that's a good way for me to explain what it felt like. Because again, you don't realize the chaos, the turmoil, everything that you're going through. And then you kind of hit that, whether you're doing the keto or the carnivore or ketovore or whatever, you're going to hit that moment where you open that door and the clarity hits you just like a ton of bricks. And the pain lifts.
It's mind blowing because going through the same thing, and I'm sure so many people in the chat have gone through it as well. Where, like, just like you said, pain, ailments that you didn't even know that you had. And now that you're talking about the Prilosec, I remember in the middle of the night having GERD, having like the weirdest thing, like waking up out of nowhere and feeling the acid in my throat. And I'm sorry, it's too early for this, but I would have to throw up. And I'm like, what the heck is this? And my wife would be like, you ate pasta with tomato sauce. And I'm like, so what? Like, I'm Italian. I'm immune to this. She's like, no, you're not. It's fine to eat this stuff maybe at 11 o'clock in the morning or in the for lunch, whatever, but you're eating it at 10 p.m. And I'm like, all right, but you banged on some important points here. The food intake helps your mental health, helps the inflammation, and gives you back that control. And the analogy that you provided with the Wizard of Oz, it's very true. It couldn't be more on point. You have this kind of epiphany when you cross through that line. And with carnivore, ketovore, whatever the case is, to get you to that point. And for me, it's fasting, right? Like I fast a lot, and it's not like, all right, today I'm doing 20 hours. Tomorrow I'm doing 30. It's natural. Like everything that is happening, it's within its course. Let me tell you, I haven't gone to do blood work in probably a year and a half. The only reason I actually do it, I know it's a dumb reason, but it helps with the gas bill, is that my job gives you $50 to do it. Okay, fine. So you go there with a nutritionist and they go through your numbers and, hey, look, this day you go to like some blood lab and whatnot. LabCorp. Love that. LabCorp. You go there, give blood, sitting right next to the nutritionist. Your bloods are outstanding, except for your cholesterol. And said, okay, what's wrong with my cholesterol? Oh, you're at 280. And yeah, you have to drop that. Why? Because you might die. Wow, that's morbid. Like that. Like, again, when you go for help, like I did with my health scare that started all of this, when I started, unfortunately, I was bleeding in the back canal. And I'm talking to my GI doctor, and he gives me a bottle of probiotics, Dustin. He says, you got to buy this because this is going to help you out. I'm like, all right, cool. How much is it? He's like, look it up online, Amazon. It was $180. $200 bottle. Think about that. People are struggling day to day, making ends meet. Now you're at a point of your life where something that you have no idea what's going on, and you're like, holy smokes, I'm at a crossroads. Pay my electric bill or buy this bottle. Guess what I had to do? I bought the bottle because it's a scare tactic. Now, I'm more than sure that the doctor is following a protocol, and I'm not going to blame him. I blame the institution. I blame everything around it. But now I'm relegated to using funds for these pills, and now I'm dependent on these pills. That's one thing I never wanted to be, dependent on something, an outside influence, an outside source. How do you feel that the pharmaceutical industries have controlled the narrative for such a long time?
Well, it's a slow process, I think. I don't think they necessarily started out with the intention of being the way that they are. And I still think that there's a good, I don't know if it's a conservative or a way to look at this, but I think 98% of all people in healthcare are there because they want to help. They want to do the right thing. They want to make people better. But they get locked up in a system that doesn't allow really for people to get better, even though I think they do. Because I mean, nobody really wants to go through all the schooling, the everything that it takes to become a doctor or a nurse practitioner, or even what I went through with my wife for her to become a nurse, the NCLEX, the clinicals, everything that they have to go through to become a healthcare professional, because and not have necessarily a desire to help people. So when we start talking and we want to dissect the food industry, the pharmaceutical industry, the healthcare system, all of these things, I mean, sure, we can go back to Procter and Gamble, we can go back to Ansel Keys, we can go back to all of these things. We can go back to, again, Procter and Gamble with Crisco and the cottonseed oils, and becoming, making, a lard product that wasn't lard. We can go back to all of these things. And I think it started there. But again, I think people probably, I mean, did Ansel Keys have like the best intentions? Was he trying to make people healthy? Was he trying to get one over on us? I don't think he was trying to get one over on us. I think he did what he did, I think, because he was trying to be revolutionary. I think he was trying to help people. Now, again, the road to, the road of destruction is paved with good intentions, or however that quote goes. But I think we are where we are because it's difficult for us as humans to be so objective. Like for a lot of us, I think, for as an individual, it's easy for you and I to go, okay, well, my cholesterol is a little high, I'm not too concerned about that. But as a medical field, it's so much different, because then their licenses are at stake, their careers are at stake, their livelihoods are at stake, their reputation is at stake. I think that's, I don't know. It's such a convoluted, perfect storm of everything that could go wrong that did.
Mm-hmm.
But again, it was paved with good intentions.
Right.
Like the fear of cholesterol is a fear because they don't want you to have a heart attack. And I mean, as time goes on and as we have more data, then I think ego plays a bigger piece in that than I think malice. Ego plays a bigger piece in that, where now you have all these doctors, all of these people who've written papers and studies and all these things that people have their name on, that says that cholesterol is the problem, that sugar really isn't the issue. But I mean, but it is cholesterol, and it is whatever, all the different things that we deal with. Now they are afraid to recant, because then it makes them look bad and their ego would be bruised. And I think that's, again, where human nature comes into play.
Right. I think it's a good combination of that, and percentage wise, I think that's probably a good 40% of it. I think the remaining 60% is that they have a machine that's well oiled, that the people that are benefiting from so many people getting misinformation and being scared, being fearful of the cholesterol. The reason why I'm saying this is because of kind of like that documentary, right? The Cholesterol Code. I don't know if you saw it just as yet.
I did.
I thought it was sensational. I like the fact that it provided truth and merit. And by what I mean by that is, for the people that did not watch it, I'm not spoiling anything, but it's nothing that you don't know. Basically, there was a study done, and it was legitimate, and it was ready to be presented. to the American Heart Association. Little logo next to Crisco. A nice little oil, Wesson. It messes you up, but it lowers your cholesterol. So put that in your food. They were ready to present. They had, what was it, like 3 years or 4 years worth of data. And it was legitimate. And the night before, they called them up and they said, nope, we're not going to present it. You're not allowed. That to me is stating, all right, these people checked off all the boxes. They're going to start changing the narrative for truth. And people are going to start getting better. I don't think they want us to get better because it messes up their algorithm. It messes them up. They don't want us to think critically. They hate this, what we're doing right now, Dustin. They cannot stand this, that we're thinking outside of the realm of this matrix. And this is not to get crazy or whatnot. It's true. How many times have you had discussions with either a friend, family? I know I have, even online, where we're just talking about nutrition. The moment you bring up carnivore, you're an outlier. But yet that same individual, if you start talking about GLP-1 shots, it's acceptable because Serena Williams takes it. Why is it that that part of life is okay, but what we're doing is so demonized?
Well, we are in a culture of a lack of understanding of just how powerful the foods we eat impact us, or how much of an impact the foods that we eat have on us. And we are in a culture that whatever is wrong with you can only be rectified, fixed with a pharmaceutical. We have and are in a society where the conversations that you and I and hundreds have dated, on a day-to-day basis in this space are considered crazy. It's considered fringe. It's considered outlandish, scary. And over the years, I've had to adapt how I communicate this lifestyle to people who are not ready to hear about this lifestyle. Because as a person who, lost a lot of weight in a semi-public forum, whether it's me posting on Facebook for people that I actually know in real life, Instagram for people that don't really know me, and then into YouTube and so on and so forth, people reach out. I want to know what you did. What did you do to lose this weight? It's amazing. You look great. What do you do? And in the beginning, I would data dump, and I would send like these ridiculously in-depth text messages or however they would communicate with me. And they would look at what I sent to them and go, hey, I'm not doing that.
Right.
I mean, and rightfully so. If someone tried to do that to me at the very beginning, it would have been overwhelming. I'm like, I'm not doing that. And I've had to rein in how I talk about things. I've had to rein in how, I communicate with friends, family, even people here, because we're going to get people in the chats. We're going to get people who communicate with us, people who are involved in this community, who are in so many different stages of their journey, whether they're just taking their first step or they're kind of where they think they need to be waiting for the rest of us.
Right.
And how we talk to each individual person is a little different. And we talk about why do they think it's crazy? Why are those conversations so difficult? I think it's a multifaceted explanation because, again, food is life. Mm-hmm. Food is everything to humans. And we can, and we can have those conversations where we say things like food isn't entertainment, food isn't this, but it is. Food is so deeply entrenched with who we are as humans, to whether we're, celebrating harvest, celebrating birth, celebrating death, celebrating whatever it is that we're celebrating, we're mourning, we're handling, because without food, we wouldn't be here. And this is sort of like a kind of a transition into like that food addiction thing that we were talking about, or, we alluded to earlier on, but that's one of the reasons that it's so difficult to get away from food addiction, because we can't survive without food. We can't. Like an alcoholic, after they get through detox, can survive perfectly fine, physically, mentally, without alcohol. They don't need it to survive. They may think they do. In the beginning, alcohol is one of the few, substances that if you quit too soon, you may not make it. But as you get through that, and the same thing with any other pharmaceutical, there's, I guess, some of the new like diazepams and things like that can cause those issues as well. But I digress. But I mean, you can't not eat. Sure, we can fast for a week, 2 weeks. Some people do 40 days. You can fast up to a certain point, but eventually we have to eat. We can't just never eat again. So it comes down to, well, what are we eating? What are we putting on our plate? What are we putting in our body? And with the way that we have been conditioned from pop culture, commercials, family. I mean, when I was a kid, I would show up at my, we would go to my great grandmother's house and we would knock on the door. She'd be like, "Oh, you're here, hug us." And then cast iron was hitting the stove. Right. Because she needed to feed us. I mean, it's entrenched, it's ingrained. And then we think about what makes us feel good in life. And we have these conversations with our friends. I have a friend who's on a GLP-1 and she takes GLP-1s and then eats Reese peanut butter cups. She losing weight? Sure. But is she, but it's like you could have done something totally different and been fine. But you can't have that conversation because that's not what they want to do. I've had conversations with lots of friends and they're like, I just couldn't do it because I need to have my bread. I need to have and it just wouldn't work for me because of this, that, and the other. And, I couldn't do that because I have to have this or whatever it is. And it is a frustrating conversation because you have to handle it with kid gloves. Right. Because you can't you're being stupid. Why don't you listen to me? Because that doesn't work. And, like I have a friend who has ulcerative colitis, has for probably the better part of a decade. And is it in remission because of lots and lots of medication? Yes, it took him a long time to get there. He and I have talked ad nauseum about the idea of him trying carnivore, lion diet, to get himself away from the medication. But the journey from understanding what he had, the symptoms, the overwhelming nightmare that ulcerative colitis is, to getting it to feel better with medication, he's terrified to try something else because the medication is working. So he's terrified to try to do anything to get off the medication. And part of me can't blame him for that because I wouldn't want to go back into having those symptoms. And, we hear from Nick Norwitz about his ulcerative colitis and IBS. And some of the things that he had to worry about. And, was he going to make it through, a speech or reading a paper and, at Harvard or Oxford or, the places that he went. And we take it for granted where we are. And I think it's important too, when we have this discussion of why it is difficult to have these discussions with our friends and family, because it's easy for us to have that hindsight. It's easy for us to be where we are and forget where they are and what it would take for them to get to where we are now. And I think the most important thing we can do is we can't belittle them. We can't force them. We can't judge them. We can't do any of those things because that's not going to work. All we can do is be an example and be there for them when they come calling.
I couldn't agree more. And one of the big things with this lifestyle is honing in on the root cause, right? Not the symptom. Again, just as your friend, as the example, still GLP-1s, still eating the Reese's. The root cause is not being attacked. The symptom is of not being hungry, but still enjoying the vices. I honestly feel processed foods are the main reason how our primal nutritional cycle has been disrupted, and I'm going to elaborate on this. Do I think vegetables are trying to kill us? No. Do I think fruits are trying to harm us? Absolutely not. And not to get, into religion or whatnot. The Creator didn't create us for us to kill ourselves. I think this body was to enjoy all the fruits, everything around us, enjoy life, but not allowing the foods to be our deity. I honestly believe that before processed foods, there were seasons. In the springtime, berries would come out. There was no need to go hunting for a deer or a cow or whatever the case is. Food was in abundance. By the summertime, you had lettuce, you had broccoli, whatever the case is. Watermelon, pineapple. But then October comes. Your body is full of glucose. There was no people that were overindulging. And maybe there were people, but it was a natural course. Now comes November. It's cold out there. There's no way that you're going to have a plant survive in the dead of winter. At this point in December, it's freezing. You have used up all of your glycogen, everything. Now it's time to hunt because you love your family. You want to make sure that everyone in your household is being fed. You go out with your son or your daughter, whatever the case is, and you get yourself a buffalo. Took you some time, but your senses have gotten to that sixth sense. And you're in tune with nature. Now you get this animal. You do whatever you need to do. You cut it up, whatever the case is. And the first thing that you go for is the fat. Because in the event that it's going to take you a month to have your next meal or whatever the case is, once you're done with this buffalo, you're satiated and you're living off of ketones and you're burning the excess fat, whatever the case is. And guess what? Here comes April again. Here comes May. Here comes June. And we follow this cycle. Processed foods, when it crept in, the drug dealer became the supermarket, where you could have your strawberries in December. You could have your mixed greens in January when there's 9 inches of snow outside, 3 feet of snow. You're eating off season. And now your blood sugars are crazy. Now you have to go to the doctor. Well, unfortunately, you're teetering on type 2 diabetes. Okay. Well, you have to, take the little monitor, whatever the case is, injections. And now you fall into that paradigm. And before you know it, you're on medication, and they're still telling you to eat a well-balanced diet, completely off of what we were used to. To put it mildly, Dustin, we have overcomplicated this shit. Haven't we? Sorry for the language.
Well, I don't mind. I think one of the biggest things I think that we overlook is for centuries, up to 200, 300, even 500 years ago, we were living in the opposite of abundance.
Mm-hmm.
We would have to, like you said, hunt buffalo. We were looking for, whether we were foragers or whether we were planting things, everybody had to, you would be a farmer. You would have to grow your own food. You'd have to make sure you had enough food to make it through the winter, whether you're drying beef, canning this, doing whatever. It was, how do we survive? And now we have an abundance.
Mm-hmm.
We can go to, up till a few years ago, we could go to Walmart at 2 a.m. and buy 6 gallons of ice cream.
Yes.
If we wanted 6 gallons of ice cream at 2 a.m., we could do it. It's still pretty much, it's usually open to 11, opens again at 6 or whatever. It's not a big deal. But they just built a new grocery store up the street from our house, like less than a mile from my house. There's a brand new Meijer grocery store. I got to go there and film some stuff, but
oh no,
we've got it. We've got abundance. We've got food everywhere. There's food at the hardware store. Yes. There's food obviously at the gas station. There's food at, there's food and candy at Kohl's. It doesn't matter. I remember they used to sell sodas at Goodwill. Like, we have an abundance issue. So we, as humans, are battling our own natural mechanism to eat as much as we can to survive. Now, we understand satiety. We understand that, if you are eating, primarily animal products, meat, fat, you're going to find satiety. But in a situation where you didn't have those, and you're eating wherever you could find the berries, apples, wherever you happen to be, if you were down in Florida catching an iguana, Rick,
yeah.
Watch out for them falling in the wintertime. But, I think, we live in this time of abundance, and it's playing against our we will eat and eat and eat and eat to survive. And I think we forget that piece of the puzzle. So if we give ourselves an unending amount of food, macaroni and cheese and pizza and corn dogs and all the things that I have loved, chicken nuggets, whatever, we will eat and eat and eat, because again, those foods don't trigger or don't automatically trigger that satiety mechanism. They don't trigger the fact that we're full. Typically, for me, leading up to starting this lifestyle, there were nights, many nights, where I would eat only stopping because it hurt. Only stopping because I was worried that I would actually physically harm myself
Yep.
with too much food. I felt if I moved too fast, I might pop.
Yep.
I would lay there for an hour watching TV and then go, you know what? I feel a little bit better. Let's go get some ice cream.
Yes, sir.
It was legitimate, like ridiculous amounts of food.
Couldn't stop. I couldn't stop. And you brought up such a great point there of food at the hardware store. I'm gonna dive into this because you nailed it. We're kind of set up to fail, okay, in this whole matrix type of thing, right? So you go to the hardware store because you're getting water through the roof, stress levels through the roof. You go in there to buy some shingles and you're figuring, all right, I need, a couple of nails here. I need to buy this and that. You're asking the guy some questions, and there's so many things going on. You're at the counter to pay because your stress levels are so high. There's a Kit Kat there. And immediately you associate it with comfort. I'm going to eat this. My stress is going to lower because my dopamine levels are going to go up. It's worth it. Just grab it, put it in the cart. I'm going to put the shingles in the back. And as I'm driving back home, I'm going to eat this. And the moment you bite into that chocolate, except for you, Rick. Love Rick. He'd be biting off like the head of an iguana on his way back. A live one. That would be his beef jerky. Love it. Love you, Rick. So you're driving home, and the moment you bite into that, and I know we're all culpable of it, and it's not judging. It's, I went through it as well. There's a relief. Not that the roof is done, but the stress levels just dropped a little bit. And now the body does not forget that chemical composition that made everything worth it for that moment, that draws a parallel, believe it or not. I know some people might think that this is extreme, but it's not, to a heroin addict. All the life struggles, all the things going on in life, the craziness, that heroin addict, that moment in time is the exact moment in time of that individual in that hardware store picking up that Kit Kat, that chemical synapse within your neurons, within yourself. I think carnivore has made us think twice. It's there. You still got your shingles. You have everything ready to go. Kit Kat is there, and now you're thinking twice, 3 times. I can do this. I'm going to feel good for just a little bit. It's not worth it. And you could shut that off and go on your way. Or many of us, where I'm trying to get there. I'm trying to get there, Dustin. Where I could say, okay, you know what? I could have a little bit and I could repivot and go back on. Unfortunately, Dustin, I have a bad addiction. Horrible. Like, I can't veer off because the moment I do, I'm back on this. I think on your show, I had commented about maybe 4 weeks ago. I'm going to Europe, right? In August. I'm going to Paris and Italy. First time in Europe. I'm excited, but I made my decision, right? I can't dabble in pizza as much as I want to. I know what that's going to be. Now, I've heard the narrative of, well, in Italy that they don't put glyphosate, this and that. Unfortunately, to me, a carb is a carb, just like a beer in Queens, New York, is a beer in Sicily, Italy. I can't, as like let's say a recovering alcoholic, doesn't know the discrepancy where it's coming from, but the body's going to know alcohol exists. Like I can't give myself that freedom, and I'm cool with it because I already have that mindset. I think it's the addiction part of it. The addiction is the part where we're all walking on thin ice, but for some, they have better grasps of it. Like, for instance, Dr. Kiltz. Dr. Kiltz is a savant, man. Like, he'll eat a little bit of ice cream, this and that. He does utilize moderation. How do you see the spectrums here? Like that's what I wanted to ask as well. Like you have like one side of the spectrum that is suffering from big time addictions, like where I'm at. I'm on that. I'm on that end. And then you have the other end that, you know what, they can veer off a little bit, get back on. Let's go back on carnivore. Do you ever feel like there'll be a midpoint where both sides could meet and be like, all right, you know what, we'll help each other out on this?
I think about the mechanism behind addiction, and I think about how biologically over time our bodies have created that. Like, how would we evolve as a species to be able to be addicted to something? Is there something in our genetic makeup that would cause that? We talk about that idea. You brought up the idea about the stress at the hardware store. Think about, and I was just kind of thinking about this as you were talking, like the idea that you have been tracking this animal for a week.
Mm-hmm.
The stress of hunting it, tracking it, finally being able to get there and kill it. And then you sit down and you have that first bite. Do you think that equates to the stress of having something happen to your house and have to fix that and be there and have that Kit Kat? Do you think there's a biological component that's passed down over the millennia to us that helps push that into our, like, kind of pushes that into our genetic makeup? Do you think that may be something that is instilled in us long before we had all this processed food? I mean, it's a question that had just kind of popped in my head, and I was like, it kind of makes sense, because what's a driver for humanity, right? You know, again, we have that mechanism that we need to survive. So would there be a mechanism in there to, like, I mean, how would it be is if you were like, you know, like you get up to this bush and you've been starving for, you know, a couple of weeks and you find this blueberry bush and you were like, man, I don't really like blueberries. You know what I mean? I mean, like, or are you going to be like, I'm going to shove these in my face as fast as humanly possible?
Right.
I just kind of wonder about that. I kind of wonder, we talk about these mechanisms, we talk about addiction, we talk about all of the things, like, why would we as humans have that addiction capability? Whether it's, you know, from tobacco or alcohol or illicit substances, whatever the case is, Cheetos, Doritos, Twinkies, whatever. Why would there be that? That again, you know, what Mr. Biscuit says there, the pleasure center. I think, I mean, you know, that is instilled in us to go, okay, I made that, I killed that elk. Mm-hmm. And I've had this slow roasted elk over this fire. Now I'm enjoying it. I really like that. I should probably go and get more elk. Or, you know, these blueberries, these strawberries, whatever we find in nature, those are good. They make me happy. I should probably try to get more of those. I don't know. I mean, and I think that we have, for all intents and purposes, evolved with our situation, with abundance, faster than our genetics and our our biology could keep up. So we went from millions of years, however you want to look at it, a long time, where we were eating a specific way. And now, again, we can go to the grocery store at 2 in the afternoon, 5 in the afternoon, midnight, whatever the case is, we can go to the corner gas station and get a frozen pizza or, you know, a 2-liter or whatever we want to get. We have instant access. We can bring up our phone and have McDonald's brought to our house. I can order it right now, and by the time the stream's over, it'll be at my front door. I don't even have to go anywhere. We've kind of gone from that. I have to work for a week to get this buffalo to I can order this pizza and it'll be here in less than 30 minutes. I don't know. Like, I think that's an abundance. And again, I think we've set ourselves up to fail. And that's kind of like what I put in the thumbnail that I put for this for myself. I was thinking about what the topic was. And we've done it inadvertently. In order for us to thrive, in order for us to survive, in order for us to ensure that we, as a species, can thrive, continue doing what we do, we have kind of opened Pandora's box in a way with abundance. We've given ourselves what we've never had really before, as far as written history, as far as what we know to be true, as far as food on this planet, right? So I'm just curious. I'm curious, because we talk a lot about addiction, and like, there's a definite addiction component, because when it comes to like fast food and things, there's not a lot of fast food that I'm really interested in. But the other day I did go with my buddy. There was the Sonic drive-in a couple times a month or a couple times a year or whatever, where they do like the 99-cent corn dogs.
Right.
And my buddy, he was like, hey, they're having 99-cent corn dogs. I'm like, okay, do you want to go for lunch tomorrow? We'll meet up. You can get your corn dogs. I'll sit there, have a soda or whatever. And I was like, well, let me go and I'll order a couple of patties and I'll film it. And then I made a little short video about it.
You bring up a good point, right? Like, hunting and having that wanting to have more. I just feel certain foods exacerbate that, right? Like, for me, when I eat a steak, it's the first time in my life where I still have, like, let's say half a steak to go, where I stop eating and I'm like, this is weird. I'm done. I push it away. With blueberries or a peach, I cannot stop. Like, I feel like if I was in that situation primally, I wouldn't be able to stop eating fruit. I wouldn't. I'd be like, honing in, garrisoning kind of the tree and not allowing anyone through. This is mine, 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 mine. But as far as meat and fat, it's a different chemical reaction biologically, where I share with the family, everything's good. There's no, hey, you're going to eat that, you're going to eat this, as I was before with like an Italian meal, like lasagna, sausage and peppers, and whatever the case is. It was, as you were saying, just eating till it hurts. So last night I had a live stream at a Brazilian steakhouse with Lewis. And we both got to the point where we were stuffed. And we had this dialogue and we're like, this isn't normal for us. This isn't right. Like, it hurt because it was one after another after another. But that was my norm back in the day. I would be going to the buffet right before the steak would come out and chow down over and over and over. And there was no satiation. And then from there, I would come home, even after like a buffet, whatever the case is, and I would down a sleeve of Oreos as if it was nothing. I didn't know the discrepancy between 2 sleeves of Oreos and a bowl of cereal. It was the same to me, or some fruit. But I feel like with your example, if it was the fruit aspect of it, yes, I think there was a minor addiction with it, but I think even then it was scarce, wasn't it? Back then, I mean, there were blueberries everywhere, but it was to a certain point where wouldn't you get tired of eating that over and over?
I don't know. I think it comes down to the fact that how many of us truly know what it means to starve?
You're right. Great point. Excellent.
Because even if we've gone without dinner, we've gone, whether you fasted or whatever, none of us have been to the point. I mean, most of us have ever been to the point where there just isn't food in the cupboard. I mean, I grew up poor too, but we still had food. It wasn't good food, but we had food. So, I would go to bed every night with my belly full, but I never knew true starvation. And I think there's a piece of that when it comes to what, any kind of food that doesn't provide satiety, where the body kind of knows, okay, this is going in, this is making us feel not, we're not starving to death, but it's not nutrient dense. Because like I could eat, a whole lot of bad food. But, yesterday I made myself, my one meal that I had yesterday, I made 8 eggs. I had 2 different types of pork sausage and some cheese, all like the scrambled eggs. And I had like the sausages in the air fryer and I put it all together with some cheese. And I ate about half of it.
Right.
And I'm sitting there like, normally, if that was a bowl, like as full as the bowl was, if that was macaroni and cheese or ramen noodles or whatever, I would have been through that and then been like, well, what else is there? But I ate half of it, put it in a Ziploc, and I'm going to warm it up today. I've got a soccer game to go to at noon. I'll warm that up, eat that. But it's weird. It's weird, but I do wonder what the biological component is, why that wasn't, I can't say that why it was instilled in us. I think survival is why those demands on our body were put there, like why we could, because I mean, there's no way for us to really know what things look like back then, what, how many blueberries there were. We got to remember that there was just nothing. There were no cities. There was no, for a long time. We don't really know. There's not a lot of records kept from a lot of that stuff. So we just don't know. We have a few historical records here, a few, a little bit of there, a lot of word of mouth. But I imagine that survival, if you came across whatever you came across, as long as you had realized that wasn't gonna, be a life-ending event, like, the wrong mushrooms or whatever, right? I think we would just gorge ourselves on like however many apples we could find or whatever. How do we figure out wheat? How do we figure out barley? How do we figure out oats? How do we figure out all that? Because we were probably trying to just not starve to death. So, and I think just the idea of the overarching kind of thing that kind of comes to mind is the amount of abundance we have. And we can go, obviously there's not, any kind of rush on things, but there's always meat at the grocery store. There's always chickens. We've seen shortages of eggs and different things like that over the last couple of years, but typically we've never been to the point where, well, there's no eggs, but if I go back tomorrow, there might be some and I'll probably get some. There may not be any today, but tomorrow, even though there's a shortage, I probably pay, because there was a point where we were paying $30 for a dozen eggs.
Wow.
Not a dozen eggs. 5 dozen eggs, the box.
Oh, I'm like, man, those are golden.
No, I'm Freudian slip there, but
no, it's okay.
But now I can go to Walmart right now and get the 5 dozen box of eggs from Walmart for less than $9.
Yes. Exactly. 100%. That is very true. You bring up solid points there. You know, we have not gotten to that point. And hopefully we never do of that hunger. You know, thank goodness we have that freedom of saying, all right, you know what? We could last about maybe 12 hours, 16, like we said, 40 days, but it's a choosing as opposed to the environment choosing it for us. You know, Bride's Biscuit said something worth noting. Food scientists didn't just flip open the Pandora's box of carb addiction. They built the box, patented it, monetized it, and created a sales marketing team to mass distribute it. I think that is golden right there. And I think for us to decipher it, and we're on the right trajectory here. Evelyn says, my brain still says that's not enough food, but I reach satiety with less and can go longer without food. It is enough. It is, it's very true. You know, we get to a certain point where I think you kind of fine tune when you're done eating within this lifestyle, you know, and it's encouraging. And I think we're on the right path. And with that, my man, Dustin, I cannot be more thankful for the opportunity of just coming on the show, spitting knowledge. This was so informative. It was an intellectual discussion, and I would love to have you back on. And Dustin, where can people find you?
Find me on YouTube at KetoSimple, on Instagram and X at KetoSimple. I do TikTok, but it's at KetoSimple_. I had at just KetoSimple, but my phone messed up. I had to reformat it one day, and I lost the ability to access it. So I'm on Instagram, X. I'm kind of everywhere. You can find me again tomorrow morning, 7:30 a.m. Sunday, Eastern Standard Time. I'll be back with my live tomorrow. I'm always around. You can catch me in just about, usually a few lives a day when I should be doing other stuff. I'm around. You can find me.
Love it, man. I'm going to be there tomorrow, man. You know me. I'm going to be on that chat. Love your show. Everybody in the chat, thank you so much for watching, for commenting. We will see you very soon. Have a wonderful rest of your Saturday. God bless everyone. Bye.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, everybody.
You're quite welcome. Bye.